People participate in psychoactive substances for one of two umbrella reasons, and that's hello or goodbye. I'm a little overwhelmed. I need to soften or numb, or I want to explore. I want to connect. I want to heal.
Lauren Taus, licensed clinical therapist, working at the forefront of psychedelic-assisted therapy and integration, founder of Embodied Life, helping humans navigate the sacred technology of plant medicine. Today we discuss plant medicine, the beauty of the breakdown, and the work of true integration.
Folks who've gone through the MDMA trials were like, this was not an ecstatic experience for me. This was like profoundly painful. The breakdown creates the opportunity.
Anyone that has put together something that's broken, the new piece is actually more beautiful than the original one.
Integration is the name of the game. You can have plenty of medicine and not integrate a damn thing. Any trip that I've ever taken has been with the prayer that I'm better able to be here in this dimension.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Jeff.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. So good to be here.
Yeah, this is a long time coming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have a goal here with our conversation. We'll see where it goes. So many people are suffering from PTSD or treatment-resistant anxiety, depression, etc. And I hope to use our time together to be able to provide a little bit of a guide of whether or not psychedelic therapy is a good option for people as they confront some of their deepest issues, mm-hmm. or have friends and family members that do. Mm-hmm. And just to, create a little bit of framework, for quite a long time, there was classes of drugs that have been used to address these conditions of PTSD and depression, primarily SSRIs, but not exclusively, mm-hmm. SNRIs, mm-hmm. antipsychotics, etc. But our evolving understanding of these drugs seem to also run parallel with the fact that we've hit this basic plateau where the number needed to treat is so high. Our understanding of the biochemical origins of a lot of depression have really changed. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, kind of in the early 2000s or late 1990s, there was a kind of re-examining of psychedelics as possible therapies for these things, most notably with MAPS, but also at Johns Hopkins, et cetera. And now in the last few years, thanks to you and many other people in this space, there's been this massive efflorescence, mm-hmm. And provided, I think, a lot of hope for people. Mm-hmm. Just from maybe a framing of historical framing, this era is not the first time that we've looked at psychedelics as potential therapy for a lot of depression or alcoholism, anxiety. So maybe you could take us through a little bit of the history of the use of and study of psychedelics, and then where we went off the rails.
We human beings have been partnering with psychoactive things probably since we got here. There is evidence in caves, etchings that are like 20, 30,000 years old in the south of France and northern Spain. There's a lot of reason to believe that perhaps psychedelic experience was part of the development of Judeo-Christian religions. Brian Marescu's book, The Immortality Key, is sort of tracing that potential timeline in history. I like to also note that animals in the animal kingdom get high. And we don't have any need to pathologize that or make it good, bad, or wrong. It just is part of nature. And it's been studied that these animals will sometimes engage in these kinds of plants because they're having a hard time. Like the water buffalo in Vietnam after the bombs. They were getting ripped on different plants. And then there's like sloth and reindeer and dolphins and all kinds of animals. Like we humans and we animals do this.
Yeah, I'll interrupt just for a second because I really want people to go to YouTube and check this out. Maybe we'll actually integrate the video. But because I've been listening to you, I surfaced this video of these dolphins playing with the pufferfish.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What's happening there?
Yes. The pufferfish give them like a slight narcotic effect, and they look really wild.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, catnip too. Think about people giving their little kittens catnip. They're getting weird. Children, we've been talking a little bit about, but your kids, like you'll find kids spinning around and around and around and then falling down on the ground. Whee! There's the consciousness piece that comes into play that we naturally want to pursue. There's all different kinds of ways of doing this. I believe that people participate in psychoactive substances for one of two umbrella reasons, like only, and that's hello or goodbye. I need to time out. I'm a little overwhelmed, and I need to soften or numb, or I want to explore. I want to connect. I want to heal. I want to excavate and celebrate. I want to go in there. In the 1950s and the 1960s, there was a lot of work happening all over, specifically at Harvard. I think that there's a lot of
lore
around Right Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, later Ram Dass, doing incredible studies with psychedelics, specifically psilocybin and LSD. There was the Good Friday experiment, and then there was the Concord prison experiment where, they were just looking at mystical experiences and looking at recidivism and how could this impact prison communities. And they were getting a lot of positive feedback. There was a proliferation of studies happening at that time. And then President Nixon had a desire to make things different. We went on a war, launched the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Which is when we scheduled the drugs. That happened in 1970. And there was never any science around scheduling certain substances such as psilocybin, MDMA, ayahuasca, et cetera. There was no science. The president's aide, John Ehrlichman, was quoted as basically saying, of course we knew we were lying about what we were doing. Yeah. And we wanted to disrupt certain communities that were anti-war, that were doing, that were causing us problems and our agendas of what we wanted to do. And so they very effectively, shut down a lot of the research that was happening. The war on drugs has cost the United States over $1 trillion. $1 trillion, I feel like, can't even conceptualize that amount of money.
Yeah.
At the time, in the 50s and 60s, there was a lot of research happening, similar to the kind of research that's happening now. And it was exciting. Yeah. And it got stopped.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you point out so articulately is that the war on drugs, it painted a portrait of the word drug as kind of in the best sense something that you did at Woodstock, or something that I might do kind of behind the dumpster after school, but in the worst sense as something very, very dangerous, very, very illegal. And to reframe that stigma is a lot of work.
Yeah, it's something I'm really passionate about as well. I believe in our lexicon, there are a lot of words that need to go to rehab. Drugs is one of those words. It's, God, addiction, cancer, words that have such harshness around them and are not really understood in their complexity, right? Like drug, synonymous with medicine. It's totally the same word.
I think the reframe for me, particularly as I delved into your work, is that, psilocybin and MDMA and, all these different drugs that we'll talk about, they're happening in recreational settings, in nature and in a field or at a concert, but they're really happening clinically in a lab. That's where the real work is actually being done. And I think it's very important that we understand that. Now, of course, you're probably not taking them in that setting, but what I'm really referring to is that there's there's really just a tremendous amount of clinical research to uphold their efficacy and safety. So anyways, just to make that point.
Yeah, it's important. And these tools, when they're worked with well, are miraculous and life-saving and life-giving. And I know it from my own personal experience. It's happened for me over and over and over again. It's happened in my own family. It's happened in the life of my father later in his life. You opened talking about PTSD. My mother was an outrageous PTSD case. I mean, complex PTSD all day. And she died 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. I know that this kind of work would have kept her alive longer and helped her heal. And I know many people who say the same of their parents who passed, perhaps prematurely. I mean, of course, we all go when it's time, maybe, I don't know. But I really work for my mom. I work for mothers and fathers who are not getting effective treatment. And my mom was a case that did have a lot of treatment. She had a lot of conventional treatment, a lot of top of the line, expensive treatment, and it made things worse. I watched that happen. I watched her get re-traumatized by a lot of these types of interventions that are, more common. As I mentioned, that I work for her, and I also was able to get my father onboarded into this work much later in his life, which is cool for folks who are older and think that they can't change, and maybe they can, right? Like my dad started his journey work at 75.
Yeah, and of course this has utility for healing relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents are fortunately still alive, and to be able to metabolize some of that trauma before that chapter closes, but also utility in terms of providing some freedom from the fear of death.
Yes. Well, that's one of the greatest things for me with my dad. My dad was a staunch atheist.
Yeah.
And he now has experience of the divine. He knows he's going to what he calls the spirit space. Yeah. And to be able to give people later in their life, and there's quite a lot of studies around end-of-life care, a sense of something else beyond this dimension is incredibly healing.
Yeah.
You don't have to
then it doesn't have to be that the final days don't need to be like riddled with anxiety and kind of allopathic intervention.
I was present for my mother's transition out of form, and the cradle image, it felt to me when my mom died as if there was a birth happening.
Yeah.
And life, death, and children, as I mentioned, I think are the biggest psychedelic experiences on planet Earth that we have. And of course, there's lots of psychoactive plants and compounds to explore as well.
Yeah. So let's get into that. As people want to survey their options and understand more about what's available, let's talk about some of the different medicines. So maybe we can start with the most kind of typical psychedelics that most people have probably heard about.
Sure. So, your classic psychedelics are going to include psilocybin, DMT, LSD, ayahuasca, and then there's empathogens or entactogens, which are not a classical psychedelic. When you hear about a psychedelic, you're going to think about like a drug that makes you see things. It's like visionary. You're going to, and those exist, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, you can take a quote unquote classic psychedelic, a medicine that is visionary in quality and not have any visions.
Right.
Like you're not supposed to look for that. It's called seek sickness in my mind. And we have that culturally. It's not just when you're high. But so there's these classical ones which do have visionary qualities and properties. And then there's the empathogens and entactogens, which is MDMA, right? Okay. And the like. There are other medicines that produce similar kinds of impacts where you're going to feel really cozy in your body. You're going to feel really deep into your own heart. Default mode network will still kind of calm down and you have more access to what's going on inside.
What do you mean by the default mode network?
Great. So I like to, in layman's language, I like to think about the default mode network as your brain police. It's what governs your identity, your ways of being and operating the world. It's how you work. It's how you know language and how to eat and all of this. When the default mode network takes a nap, there is a whole lot of connectivity that becomes available in your literal brain, like the neuroplasticity that we're constantly forming new connections. We can literally see things more. It's as if you're pulling the curtains back, the aperture widens, and you have a whole new context to work with, or perhaps multiple contexts to work with, to feel from, to see from, to move from. And this is true across all the psychedelic experiences.
Yeah. So sort of donut break for the police in your
Yeah,
mind.
exactly.
And I think we can all relate to this just by dint of our own subjective experience. Like
Totally.
these are the stories I tell myself about myself.
Yes.
And then essentially how I act them out day to day.
Yes.
These are the deep neural grooves, the train tracks upon which I tend to operate day to day.
Correct.
And what I'm hearing you saying is that some of the more classic psychedelics and maybe even the empathogens like MDMA kind of almost reshape those grooves or help you find new grooves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And within the context of the relationship that you have with yourself, most importantly, but as well with the relationships that you have within the ecological web that you're embedded in, that you can start engaging with it in a better way. It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. And I mean, not to get too geeky, but like, what are the mechanisms of action there? Is it like floods of oxytocin or dopamine or serotonin? What's going on? We don't have to go too deep into that.
The classic psychedelics work on the 2A receptors more so than the empathogens, which are going to produce more of like a serotonin release, a dopamine, a norepinephrine, or oxytocin, as you mentioned. So there is a cascade of things going on. There's scientists all over the place. I'm much more a student of the mystery.
Yeah.
And I like talking more about that, but there's a great deal of science. And I love Robin Carhart Harris's visual that shows what's happening in the brain, and it's like a rainbow blast of magic versus like a kind of still, steady, rigid state that avails when we're working with these kinds of medicines.
Yeah, sometimes we hear about this concept of synesthesia, if I can pronounce it well.
Got it. Synesthesia.
What is that, and is that state associated with these psychedelics?
It can be so that would be like seeing music, right? The senses sort of collapse into each other. And I think for me, at least, and certainly from the work that I have supported and that I'm privy to from a research lens, these tools really widen our capacity to feel, right? And so often in trauma, for example, our systems shut down and remain stuck in historic places, right? And we can't be present with what's happening here and now. So trauma like hijacks our present and imprints passed on it and also on the future. Yeah.
There's something that's actually coming up for me right now that I've actually never thought about before is that if I were to ask you what the most traumatic experience of your childhood was, I won't, but I could. But often that answer is, like when I got into this crazy car crash or sometimes something very, very severe, psycho-emotionally. Yeah. They tend to be these moments that are marked by a massive amount of like adrenaline. And it's often said that these memories or traumas embed themselves because of that adrenaline, and to then be able to re-experience that trauma without that intense adrenaline, to actually re-experience the trauma, but in a different state of mind. That may play a role in being able to kind of metabolize a lot of the trauma or create new pathways in the brain.
One of the things that I'm aware of as a therapist is that the human experience is traumatizing. Just period.
Being alive.
Yeah.
Well, now.
Yeah. Well, always, forever.
Yeah, forever.
And we are never working with our own discrete sets of experiences. We are imprinted epigenetically by our ancestors. And we are also informed by their experiences. I did my MDMA training in Israel many years ago with Rachel Yehuda.
Right. I know you interviewed her on your podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah. And Rachel is, the epigenetic kind of, she's just preeminent epigenetic researcher.
Yeah.
And
her work's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And learning about, when she and her advisor and during her PhD program set up the Center for Holocaust Survivors at Mount Sinai, she discovered that the survivors themselves weren't calling, but their children were presenting with symptoms that would have made more sense for the parents.
Right.
And this was replicated with the children of Vietnam War vets and the, children of pregnant women who survived the attacks of 9/11. So it's like we're all carrying so much more than we think we're carrying. And when we open in these ways with these medicines, we're also connecting with that content and with a greater ability to clean it out, to clear it up. And you mentioned the adrenaline piece, right? Like with MDMA and the work that has been done on PTSD, the MAPS trials, which in 2017, many years ago now, almost 10 years ago, the FDA granted MDMA-assisted psychotherapy breakthrough designation. Like this is working. And of course, this did not pass FDA in last summer.
Year,
Which is very disappointing. And there's lots of different reasons for that. What happened was people who had carried PTSD diagnoses and symptoms for decades were getting better.
Yeah.
And they were able to revisit the sites of their injury without being so dysregulated,
right.
and without being disconnected either. Because oftentimes folks who have extreme trauma, they can talk about it, but it's as if it's not their story. Or they get close to it and their whole system is flooded and they're not able to maintain themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So these medicines, MDMA is often called ecstasy on the street. Like the folks who've gone through the MDMA trials were like, this was not an ecstatic experience for me. This was like profoundly painful. And they were able to do it and essentially reconstitute at the site of injury.
Yeah.
And I think that it's remarkable that can happen. And in some ways, like the breakdown creates the opportunity for that.
I mean, just anyone that has had to put together something that's broken, like a teacup even, knows that experience happens more adaptively when you're calm, right?
Right.
And I mean, there's a whole art form called kintsugi, right? Which is, the reassembling of broken ceramics, and you reassemble it with molten gold, such that the new piece is actually more beautiful than the original one. Yeah. And they call those little veins of molten gold, they call them precious scars. This is such a beautiful aesthetic.
I'm hearing Leonard Cohen's like, ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
Beautiful. Yeah. So you mentioned these pathogens, MDMA. Well, maybe just hover there for just one moment.
Yeah.
So it despite the evidence being overwhelming, it didn't pass the FDA. What are the primary reasons why it didn't pass?
I don't think the FDA is set up for looking at intervention that involves treatment as much as it does just a pill, right? Like that this is also pairing psychotherapy. Like the MDMA is embedded in a psychotherapeutic process. FDA is not used to looking at that. As well, there was a lot of complaint around the blinding. Folks who had received MDMA versus placebo, right? It was like a little bit more obvious who had MDMA. Like a little harder to blind a study like that.
Yeah.
There was, complaint against the fact that some of the folks who were in the study had experienced MDMA before. There was also complaint against certain unethical things that happened with certain providers that had been part of these studies for so long, right? Like this is a more of a relational healing process versus just a pill. And the, FDA approved interventions for PTSD treatment are pretty laughable. When we talk about SSRIs, like I love SSRIs. If a person needs to be stabilized from an extreme experience of depression or whatever, like por favor. And these are like symptom management. We are not touching the root of the problem. This is symptom management, and so much so that we're actually kind of elevating away from the root. And if we want to really work on health and healing, which is questionable in the system that we're operating in, like I'm not sure that that's the goal here. It's my goal. I know it's your goal. And it's the goal of many, but we're operating in a sick system.
Yeah.
And, again, thank God for the SSRIs and the SNRIs. Like they have their place and space and shouldn't be just prescribed forever. And if we want to heal, we need to go to the root of the problem.
So MDMA hopefully will have its day in the legal sun.
Amen.
But ketamine, so dissociative, is legal.
Yeah, off-label.
Off-label. Talk a little bit about ketamine and its utility.
Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic. It is a top global medication worldwide. It's common in pediatrics. It is incredibly safe. There's much fewer contraindications. It has a shorter arc, according to, in contrast to the other medicines that we've been discussing. Ketamine has been studied quite a lot. Off-label use, meaning what it is technically indicated for is not any mental health use. Right.
Like
it's like
an analgesic mostly, right?
Yeah.
Or an anesthetic. Yeah.
So when a physician is prescribing ketamine for depression or anxiety or OCD or whatever, that's off-label, which happens all the time in medicine, but it's a bit more of a gray zone. And we're working on that. The field is working on that. Mm-hmm. I think that, people need a break from their ordinary minds. In order to access different ways of being and thinking. It's also got some, shadow side. It's a dissociative anesthetic. If someone wants to go somewhere else, it's a great drug, right? Yeah. So just making sure that the purpose is clear and that the intervention is accurate.
So even though MDMA is not necessarily legal at this point, there is a very ethical use for it.
That's right.
Ketamine is legal.
Yeah.
But it's not, there's also unethical uses.
Correct. We're operating in a very difficult geography and landscape around these things because laws and ethics are not the same. And our laws are not ethical around drugs. They're not. Mm-hmm. They've been extremely harmful. MDMA is a beautiful, beautiful tool for PTSD treatment. It was probably what I would always choose. Mm-hmm. I'm an ayahuasca girl. That's my preferred medicine. Yeah. But that's not for everybody. That's a big girl.
Well, you got a jungle spirit.
I do. I do.
But ketamine, as you mentioned, the duration can be short.
Yeah.
And the dose can be kind of titrated depending how you get it, right?
Absolutely.
You can get IV or muscular or lozenge or there's
Right. There's different routes of administration and there's different kind of bioavailability, how it impacts that will kind of inform dose.
Right.
And
if you're not digging it, you can be okay, this is going to end soon, so I'm fine.
Totally. I mean, it could be, time collapses when you're in these experiences.
That's true.
And a high dose of ketamine is a very profound experience, very, very profound. But what's wonderful about it too is it's of course like many things, but certainly ketamine is dose dependent, and a psychotherapist can work with it in a psycholytic way, which is basically clinical jargon for psyche loosening. And you're going to be more lubricated and have more access to your inner world without as much armoring, defense, and walls that hide essential parts even from you. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's more psychedelic dosing, which has its space and place and is really powerful for specific things. I mean, I've helped so many people help themselves with this medicine. Mm-hmm. I love ketamine. It's beautiful.
And is there any significant delineation between ketamine and S-ketamine?
Not really.
Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a patented form somewhat.
Yeah.
And then there's full tilt options.
Yeah.
Ibogaine.
Yeah. Ayahuasca. Yeah. 5-MeO DMT. I mean, Ibogaine and Iboga are incredibly effective at interrupting opiate addiction.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of people who are in relationships with opiates that are debilitating to themselves and their families.
Yeah.
And people can really have a window with this particular intervention, which needs medical supervision. This is a big boy. Yeah. Even from a cardiac perspective, a person needs to be monitored within a more hospital type setting. And there's clinics in Mexico run by friends of mine that I dearly love doing life-saving work with this medicine and also resuscitating people who've been kind of drowning with opiates. I like to say that all the drugs are innocent. And by the way, so are the people. And there's a mission I have around exonerating them all. right? To understand that the plants and the compounds are plants and compounds. And the people are doing their best to manage a big experience, right? Called life. It's a lot.
Yeah. And historically, many of these drugs have been administered within very specific contexts.
Yes.
So let's go there for a moment, because you can't really separate the molecule from the context, right? So how do these drugs, in what context do these drugs get most effectively administered?
I'm just going to go in there with set and setting, the set being like, what is your intention? Mm-hmm. And what are you doing? And that is essential. I mean, you might be like all tripped up on some conflict or drama and like go into an experience and it's totally not there. Common. People are predicting what's going to happen. But like my teacher always says, ¿para qué? Like, why are you here? What are you doing? Is very, very important. Like, what is why? That's very important. Then where are you? The setting. The setting is, I like to think of it 3 different places and spaces where this can happen. Number 1 is a hospital, right? And there are more and more studies happening in hospital settings where scientists and doctors can track like fMRIs and more clinical data, heart rate, et cetera, et cetera. Hospitals are not healthy places. Maybe there's some safety.
Maybe there's some safety,
right?
Yeah, but generally you're trying to avoid going to a hospital.
Correct.
Yeah.
So a lot of research, though, is happening in these environments so that there are, they have the capacity to track medical data, which is important for policy.
Couldn't you just have a hospital like playing Grateful Dead and projecting, tie-dye on the wall?
Would be great. So there's, the more traditional space where psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy happens, which is a more domestic setting, Mm-hmm. There's plants and poetry books and, there might be a lot of therapy books on the walls too, but it's like, it's
or
nice.
This one particular south-facing patio at the Ojai Valley Inn.
Exactly, that one. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And then there's the naturalistic settings, mm-hmm. right? For me, when I'm drinking medicine, when I'm drinking ayahuasca, like I'm going to be in a maloca where I can walk barefoot outside and where I'm in the mountains and, folks who are, that's a whole specific kind of world. It is my world. It's my happy place. It's the best. But for people who want more kind of medical supervision, and some people need that in their psyche to feel okay, mm-hmm. We might be in one of these other kind of areas. And by the way, getting into a hospital setting implies that you've been approved and admitted to a study, which there are over 150 studies happening, but that's not that many spots really for people to go. My prayer is that we can continue to create more hybrid versions where there is medical supervision and there is collaboration on the part of Western trained medical doctors with more indigenous or spiritual kinds of healing work. Mm-hmm. But the setting is essential, right? It's often said like setting, dose, and what Betty Eisner calls the matrix, which I love. And then, who are you with? Yeah. Like, and who is with you, right? I've been talking about the sort of Russian dolls concept. Like we're always not just us. But when I'm working with people and when I'm thinking about this work for people, I want to know who is in their world. Like, who cares about them? Who holds them? We should all take turns holding each other. I had one client experience a traumatic event and described it as being hit by a meteorite and having a crater. Throughout her medicine work was kind of working with the crater. And out of that, mm-hmm. I was just like, well, isn't love just crater care? And I want to know, like, who's going to sit next to your crater? Like, who's going to hold you when you leave a session, mm-hmm. When you leave whatever medical, domestic, naturalistic environment you're in, and that's essential.
Yeah. So you're speaking both to your guide and then also who you might also be on a journey with.
Correct.
Right.
And also who's going to be there for you after. Right? Like when I'm talking to people, I want to make sure that they have a matrix of support out of the office. Like mm-hmm. if they don't have that at all, if I'm the only one, like we got to work on that first. But all of those other elements also are very important.
And how does one go about finding a qualified guide?
Oh, Jeff, this is such a hard question.
It's really hard.
It's a painfully hard question that is in a dance with the laws. right? Like we don't have databases. We don't have systems of accountability.
Yelp reviews.
We don't. And like you might hear like someone, a friend of yours had an experience and that was great for them. Yeah. But this person might not have any sort of legitimacy, right? Like some of my work I started with people I wouldn't sit with now, and I didn't know any better or different. I would say it's very important to like ask a lot of questions. And I would want a person to feel, if you're looking for ketamine, that's easier. And still ask the questions. It might not be clinical, but if it isn't clinical, like in what lineage have you been taught? And are you connected to your teachers? What does that look like? How long have you been doing this? Do you have like a trauma-informed lens? Is the person giving you any sort of like God vibes, like that they think they know? Because they don't, right? They should be confident. They should be experienced. But if they're purporting to like be able to heal you and fix you and like do all these things, like, no, you're doing that work for yourself. Yeah. And, are they clear about boundaries, about consent, about money? What kind of wraparound care is available for a treatment like this, an intervention like this? For me, I want that to be embedded within a larger system of care where there's like a preparation process. If you prepare the fields, harvest is easy. Like the medicine begins way before you ingest it. And how do you kind of get yourself ready for the ride? And then what do we do with the information afterwards, right? You can just have a wonderful, eye-opening, insightful experience, but integration is transformation. And that's work. And how is that work cared for? I want people to be supported in good ways. So like maybe the facilitator isn't going to be the one doing prep and integration, but are they thoughtful about, is someone doing that with you? I've heard so many nightmare stories. And there's so much desperation.
That's right.
And there's so much urgency.
That can often eclipse or occlude one's better discernment.
Correct. Again, there's no systems of accountability set up here. I have teachers and I talk to them. Like I was talking to one of my teachers this morning. She knows me intimately. She knows what I'm up to. She knows we're on this podcast right now. Like I have another one of my teachers, my rabbi, like I learn with him every week. Like my work is also deeply spiritual. And I have a supervisor that like I've got, therapists who I respect. Like if I have a hard case, I'll talk to them about it. I'm not going to just sit with myself, right? And like think I know. I've been doing this a really long time. I feel really good about my education. I'm always learning. The smartest people are always learning. Not to say that I'm so smart, but like I'm always learning. And I'm checked in with other people. And a lot of folks who are in this field are lone wolfing.
Or just kind of, charlatan is unfair perhaps, but it's just not their life's work. Yeah. Do you feel that a guide should have a direct relationship with the medicine herself or
Absolutely.
Himself? Yeah.
This is not diabetes medicine.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to know the terrain that an individual might be navigating, but if you don't know what this feels like, then you have no business serving the medicine, right? Like that's like a hard no. And that happens a lot with I think with ketamine, less so with the other tools.
Yeah. And ayahuasca for you, makes you a better therapist, right?
For sure. Yeah. I've had clients of mine quite literally knowing when I'm going to drink be like, I know you're doing this for me too. Thank you. Received reflections from my clients around how they see me continue to grow and shift and become more alive.
So we hear a lot about integration as inseparable from the medicine.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? Is that CBD or CBD, probably some CBD too.
Is it marijuana?
Yeah. Is it CBT or EMDR or somatic experiencing or trauma-informed therapy or IFS or all of the above or, your chosen therapy? What does integration mean?
Integration, first of all, is the name of the game when we're talking about any sort of psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. It's not inseparable from medicine. Like medicine and integration are totally different. You can have plenty of medicine and not integrate a damn thing. If you want the transformation, if you want your life to feel more aligned, right? My rabbi says alignment is holiness. right? And integration shares the same etymology as the word integrity. It's about your wholeness. So these experiences, you put the brain police into the donut shop, right? They're having the coffees and doing whatever they're offline. And then all of a sudden you're experiencing something very different and able to feel different, see different, think different. These medicines are extraordinary for a whole host of clinical diagnoses, and as well as we were touching into previously, great for creativity, great for spirituality, great for improved wellness and health. And what we do with that material is what's most interesting to me. Because any trip that I've ever taken has been with the prayer that I'm better able to be here in this dimension. Like, I'm not trying to live somewhere else. I want to be on planet Earth. Like, I want to be in my body on planet Earth during the short period of time that I'm here, right? We all get to steward these bones for a good handful of decades if we're lucky, and they will be returned. So how are we going to do that? Like, how are we going to walk around? How do we engage with ourselves, with each other, and with the earth, right? Like, this work has deepened my relationship to the planet and has given me a deep relationship with like the mountains and the trees and the birds and the stars. And it's incredible. That's integration for me. But what is integration like? Practically, it's a bazillion different things that will be individually kind of prescribed in a relationship of support, right? For me personally, I think IFS, internal family systems, Dick Schwartz's theoretical orientation is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's the least pathologizing approach. It really holds compassion for all parts of any person, including parts that might be holding a lot of judgment, rage, suicidality, addictive behaviors, et cetera. Like, if you interrogate any one of these parts long enough, you'll understand that their intentions are good. And if you work with them closely enough, you might be able to get them to change their role, right? Like, if you try to kick them out, like, they're going to do push-ups and get stronger. So working with these parts towards your, a more aligned state is certainly a win for me. Any somatic work, like, life is an action sport, not a cognitive exercise. Like, life's an action sport. And we underestimate the incredibly potent medicines of song and dance. Yeah. In shamanic societies, if someone presents with illness, one of the first questions that's asked is, when did you stop singing and dancing? And I don't think we live in a culture where people are regularly singing and dancing, right? I think EMDR, there's such medicine in telling your story, but sometimes it can just reinforce problematic pattern loops in the story when you're just talking it through. So how are we kind of becoming the heroes? Yeah. How are we working within a concept of personal myth making is of interest to me. Like, how do you win the game of your life? I want that. And that can be supported in a whole host of ways. I also know that, like, we're all in devotion to something. Like, whether that's procrastination, laziness, and, self-recrimination, or whether that's like sitting down mindfully to pray and to say thank you and to receive and to listen to the birds and to sing a song, read a poetry book. Like, how do you make space for deeper levels of listening?
I think there's a quote that is sometimes attributed to Jack Kornfield. I know you say it was that, there's the peak experience and then there's the laundry. Yeah. Right? This is a Monday morning. Okay, yeah, traffic. I have, my ego has dissolved. I've connected with nature or higher consciousness. And now here I am, I got to take the kids to school, make lunch. And this is, where our quotidian lives meet our spiritual lives and how we navigate, day to day. And, certainly we all have our different practices. Certainly I have my non-negotiable, morning practices that can, maintain a sense of gratitude for the things that you just named, the mountains, the birds, the wonderful hills, the canyons in which I live here. Life tugs you back down. Life is hard.
It is hard.
And so this is a process, I guess, not a product, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's always undulating and unfolding and shifting tides. It's like, how do you be a good sailor? How do you surf well? How do you get back up, right? Learning how to fall and get back up.
Yeah.
In some ways, life can be like one kick in the nuts to the next. And like how cool that we get to feel that and we get to learn from that and we get to like connect with other people about it. And it's, pain is absolutely a part of the game. Like suffering, less so. We can minimize our suffering by opening more to our pain and developing a toolkit around like how to feel, right? People want to be happy. Like everyone wants to be happy. You can't live happy. Happiness is a symphony of emotion.
You also can't become happy. You just have to be happy because the future never really comes.
Right.
Who should not take psychedelics, and what are the contraindications and some of the primary risks?
Yeah, I'll come back to that. I just want to
Sure.
respond to what you just said is, whenever I am drinking medicine or having an experience myself, before I ingest, I always say l'chaim. And the Hebrew letter lamed, which precedes the chaim, is also the same letter for learn, right? Like I want to learn about life while I'm here. And I spent a lot of time in my years not really being alive. And I don't think aliveness is obvious. Like when people ask me what I'm looking for in a man, the first thing I say is alive. Like it's like I want to be with someone who's here, like I can feel their life force. I want to be in a world where people are actively marrying their life force to life itself. It's not obvious. Like we're so pushed into what we think we're supposed to be for someone else. And like, we're not allowed to say certain things. I mean, the straitjacketing of emotional experience, especially for men, let's cast that away. Let's open up more. I have been through some death in my life. My sister died when I was 20. My mom died 10 years ago. I like to say life is my mission, death is my teacher. And these experiences, these psychedelic experiences are often full of death, right? Like ayahuasca is even called the vine of the dead, right? It's like, it's intense. And also like there's a birthing quality to it, and that we should be able and willing and courageous enough to shed dead skins and to rise over and over again. There's an expression, if you die before you die, then you don't die when you die. And like to just keep opening to that. My beloved father just had a stroke about 45 days ago. He's doing great. But it's a death conversation, and it brings up that reality that like we are all 100% promised death. Like life is totally terminal. A leading cause of death is life. Like we're all going to do it. You can kind of get away from taxes. Like you're going to die. Nothing that is more awakening than that. And at the same time, if we get overwhelmed by that fear, then we miss out on the moment, right? Like, and that's where the parts work I find particularly effective. Like, working with my dad and supporting him in connecting with the part that's afraid of death, connecting with the part that feels more vulnerable right now, appropriately so. And simultaneously asking like, I'm healthy. Like, what do I want to do? How do I want to spend my time? I'm here. Because, the guy's still doing like push-ups in the morning and like, he would be in the sauna and swim in his like 50-degree pool. He's a sprightly 81-year-old.
Sounds like a lot of what I do.
Right. I know that about you. So, these medicines are tremendous tools for awakening. And, sometimes people don't want to wake up until they're in crisis. And, as I mentioned, there's the urgency and the desperation, like slow is sometimes the right speed, but they can be incredibly powerful and miraculous. And I've seen like many a miracle. You ask as well, who is this work not for? There's many psychiatric conditions like schizophrenia or schizoaffective that are actually being studied, but like I would say hard no. Like unless you're like in a real hospital setting and like a real research project, like no. Bipolar can be iffy. There's cases where that can be done well. If people are having like major cardiac issues or are on certain, like ayahuasca, for example, has a lot of contraindications. Like she don't want you to be taking SSRIs, SNRIs, like any sort of like blood pressure issues. Like I've seen diabetics be able to do this safely, but like there's, you need to ensure medical safety. There's unfortunately not enough doctors who also even know what that looks like or means because they're not taught about these tools. So I like to encourage people to be good teachers for their providers, right? Like to ask questions, to encourage their physicians and medical providers to be in continued learning space. I also really have a passion for getting doctors to trip and work in these ways so that they can be really, really well. But yeah, there's a lot of both psychiatric and medical conditions that need to be screened for an individual to be safe in these journeys. And it, of course, depends on what medicine that we're talking about.
We've mostly been talking about how these medicines impact the individual.
Yeah.
And it's often said that hurt people hurt people.
Right.
Do healed people heal people?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, and I like to work with families, Jeff. A lot of traditional therapy in this culture replicates our problems culturally. Separation, isolation, like pathological individualism, right?
Abuse, neglect, racism, yeah.
Right. And it's like all of that. And I want to work with systems. If I'm working with an individual, it's like we're in a room here right now. We're in your house, right? Like if I'm working with just one person, all I can see is that corner. As soon as I start like talking to other people that live here, I see so much more. And like, I know where to take out the plunger. I know where the pipes are clogged. I can support the communications that have broken down and need to be rebuilt. I joke that my best I'm a toilet bowl. It's like, I just want to flush the shit and like get people clean. And like they're limpia, por favor. But, this work, when it's only focused on an individual, has a risk of iatrogenic harm. It's like iatrogenic medical language, like a harm of treatment.
Yeah.
It can create a lot of asymmetry and disconnection. And my prayer is to support symmetrical growth and healing in systems, because it's never just one person's problem. I when we were talking earlier about the birth of your second child, and you said we were in labor, and you said she was in labor, and I was like, I love that you said we were in labor. I have a very that was your process too. Like it wasn't your body, but it was your baby and it's your wife, and you were there like with her in her pain and supporting. I have a dear friend who's beautiful son, 4 years old, now 12, but when he was 4, got a brain cancer and had 2 years in chemo. He's doing well. He still has to monitor it, but he's great. About a year ago, she had a breast cancer diagnosis and had a double mastectomy, chemo, radiation. She's just gotten her, implants, and she's on the final healing legs of this part of the journey. And at the end of a chemo journey, in hospitals, people ring the bell. And there was a video of her and her son and her husband going into the hospital, and the son and mom rung the bell because the son has done this before. And I wanted her husband to ring the bell too. It's like he's not carrying cancer in his body, but he's carrying it in his home and his heart. And it's like to be close to that is his journey, absolutely. And whatever's going on is going on in the lives and hearts and minds and interactions of the individuals that are surrounding the quote unquote diagnosed patient. So for me, of course, if one person changes, the system starts to change. And that can happen in any direction, certainly in a good one. And, I like to encourage that. And as best I can, as often as I can, to actively involve other system members.
Yeah, I think caregivers get short shrift sometimes because so much attention is focused on someone that's afflicted.
That's right.
But of course, day in and day out, it is the caregiver, sometimes the wife, sometimes the husband, the child, etc., that has to kind of bear that burden day to day. I look at my stepmom, who's really been just an angel in my father's life. He's been managing various forms of cancer for 6-7 years. And, she's God with him on, hundreds of doctors on hospital visits. And then he broke his hip, and then, this sort of cascading sets of circumstances. And And I deeply feel for her. And sometimes it's easy to overlook that. In experience, with my dad, in many ways, I want him to really experience this freedom from the fear of death. I'm not sure he's ready for, a guided psychedelic experience. Maybe. But I think this is a sort of an under-discussed utility of the medicine. We have such paroxysms of anxiety related to, quote unquote, the end. And certainly there are practices in Stoicism, memento mori, and in Buddhism, or anassati, that are practices that are focused on acknowledging one's own death. And they seem kind of morose at first, but they're actually elicit a tremendous amount of gratitude. But actually moving from the cognitive into the somatic, into the truly felt release of that fear, that might only be available through psychedelics. Or that door is more easily open through psychedelics. I wonder, what your experience there has been.
Well, I'm grateful for the studies that are happening around end-of-life care and people who, Johns Hopkins studies, and people who are close to the end of their roads here on planet Earth and have these profound experiences that do give them a great deal of relief in the departure, right? That there's a sense of something else also. There's conversations around perhaps there's some type of consciousness that's speaking through these plants specifically, that we're able to access in these realms. In my recent dieta in the Peruvian Amazon, I got the kind of download that we are totally, totally indestructible and completely compostable. And I have had so many different experiences that have connected me to what I call spirit or the divine, God. God, another word that needs to go to rehab, right? For folks who've been maybe traumatized in religious backgrounds, et cetera. But, I'm so grateful that my father was willing to trust his creation, me, over his fear and have experiences later in his life, which catalyzed all kinds of beautiful transformation in him and has planted him much more firmly in his heart, in his joy, in his generosity, and in his spirit. And, he's 81. His mother lived to be 102, his grandfather 105. Like, I'm in the prayer that he goes, past 3 digits, but he will die. And I'm so relieved and pleased and proud that he has a sense of something else now as a result of these experiences, which he absolutely had none of and was quite certain. The atheist mindset is as much a fundamentalist as any other religious tradition, to say that that there's nothing. It's very fundamentalist. And, agnostic, fine. Who knows anything about anything? But I've also been blessed to be present to death a few times. And I was actually talking about this morning with Ruby in the kitchen up at Commune. And, there's an animating force that departs immediately from form. There's a separation, like whatever spark, call it spirit, whatever. It's like something is radically gone. And it's interesting, right? Like all of the work that I've done, I feel I've awakened my ancestors in me. I feel them. And they are my DNA, right? Like the thousands of people that had to live for us to be here. And by the way, that we exist at all is absolutely like a miraculous thing. Like the statistics around our existence are phenomenal. Like we are 1 in 4 trillion, like each one of us. And, it is a spiritual conversation, I think, death. And, we are creatures wired for survival. It's appropriate that we want to be here and that we want to stay. It's we want to be safe, of course, and we don't know what we don't know. And that's, I think, what scares so many people about psychedelic experiences. Like they don't want to step into the unknown. And that's death, right? Like we have no idea. Like I remember when my mom was dying and I would say, "Are you scared?" And she said, "I'm about as scared as I would be going on a big vacation." She's like, "The thing is, like, it's a one-way ticket. I don't know exactly where I'm going, but there's no phones and I can't call you.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that like analogy and her like approach to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree that if we can, and we don't treat death well in this culture.
No, we tend to either completely disassociate from it, or we try to prolong life in
Beyond
sometimes like absurd and costly
Correct.
ways. For what?
Right.
For what quality?
And it's like emotion is the fabric of our existence here. And I want to widen people's capacities to feel, right? Like joy is married to grief in a perfect marriage. And you want to get really happy, like you got to get cozy with the whole emotional keyboard.
Yeah, in many ways, the depth of your grief is indicative of your ability to love.
Totally. We're all going to die, or our loved ones are going to die. If we live long lives, we're going to bury a lot of people we care about. And how do we metabolize that? Like how do we think about it? And, speaking about the oneness, the echadness, as I call it in the Hebrew, echad, one. And here we are in sort of separate forms with names. And I really believe that like so much of the exercise is about the quality of our connections and our relationships and like to experience the divinity within them, but to unblock ourselves enough to be able to feel and connect. And, in a wired world, there's less connection and I'm wanting to inspire more. Yeah. And also there's lots of options for your dad if there's any interest in that. Like I feel so grateful to offer the example of my father as a Western medically trained physician who, doesn't drink alcohol, smoked weed twice in medical school, didn't like it. He's not the guy that you'd ever think would trip. And, at 75 started and is, just a beautiful example that it's still possible for anyone.
Yeah. Well, I have a dream that everyone except potentially the airline pilots and the bus drivers will all trip on the same day.
Love that.
and the world that might be possible on the other side of that. Certainly I look around and we seem to be living in an era of assholes.
A lot of hurt people, right? Like there's so much illness out there.
Yeah.
So much untreated illness. I like to say, I'm tired of diagnosing fish in toxic waters. Like our fish are fine.
Right.
Like we're fine.
Yeah.
We're great. We need conditions to support our health. And we don't have them. So I also know that you're a water cleaning agent, and so am I, and so is my community. And keeping hope and vision is essential. Whenever I lose those things, I kind of dip into a little depressive state, which is not common for me. But like keeping my eye on the prize of what's possible, and how we can transmute the pain and suffering into something that is beautiful and meaningful and psychedelic.
To reveal. You have a podcast.
I do. It's called Embodied Life. I haven't recorded a session in a very long time. Yeah. But maybe I will.
Yeah, you should. I really admire the diversity of the podcast. It's not monotone. You're tackling all sorts of different issues.
It's true.
Yeah, which I as a generalist, I enjoy that.
Thank you.
And where else can people find you and keep abreast of your work?
Well, my website is embodiedlife.com. It's IN because I want you to go in to your body in Embodied Life. And Lauren.Taus on Instagram. I host retreats twice a year and different trainings and offerings. And I have a group psychotherapy practice. So if anyone's looking for a little extra help, I've got an incredible team of people, amazing skills to support your aliveness. And more will be revealed. It's always my work is like a kid that I follow around, and it sort of tells me what to do. So I have no idea what's next, but it's got a healthy kid. Yeah. Well, thanks for remaining so curious, and thanks for your work. You're helping a lot of people, and I'm very grateful for it. Thank you for having me, Jeff. So good to finally be here together. Yeah. Well, to be continued after my trip. Woo! Amen.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. For more of my weekly musings, along with ad-free episodes and live stream conversations, head over to my Substack at jeffkrasno.substack.com. I also want to let you know about our course platform over on Commune, which contains over 3,000 lessons and practices from the world's leading integrative medicine doctors, health experts, and yoga, fitness, and mindfulness teachers. It's a living library for holistic well-being, and you can try it for free for 14 days at onecommune.com/try commune. As a reminder, the audio version of my new book, Good Stress, is available on Audible, and you can listen to it for free as part of your premium Spotify membership. And if you prefer the old school analog option, well, you can pick up a dusty old scroll at goodstress.com and get over $900 worth of bonus courses from some of my biggest influences, including Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Zach Bush, and Dr. Gabor Mate. As always, feel free to reach out to me with comments, questions, or criticism of the constructive variety at jeffk@onecommune.com. Okay, that's all from the Commune for today. My name is Jeff Krasno, and I am here for you.